What's up, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. First ever, not hot stove. Stove is off. Stove might be broken in Major League Baseball because we have a lockout. Nobody talking baseball. So we had to get the baseball chatter going here on YouTube. Threw it out there on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Give me your questions. Give me your predictions. Give me your hot takes. And I got a lot of them. Facebook, you did not do a very good job whatsoever. Twitter, very good job. And YouTube, okay, because we're on YouTube, and by the way, please comment, like, and subscribe. We'll start with the questions coming right here from YouTube, and we'll begin with Kara Shemke's. Again, this is all St. Louis Cardinals, Major League Baseball. We're going to focus just on baseball here. So Kara Shemke says, who do you think is going to improve the most over this next season on the St. Louis Cardinals? First guy that came to mind for me is the Cardinals right fielder, Dylan Carlson. And I think he had a really solid, strong rookie year anyway. Remember, this is his first full year, and I'll bring up his numbers here, but he played in the COVID shortened season. So his first full year this past year in 2021, and his age 22 season, finishes third in the rookie of the year voting. 117 OPS plus, so 17% above league average offensively. We know he threw out a ton of runners, plays a really solid defensive right field. 18 homers, 65 RBI, 266 average, 343 on base, 437 slug for a 780 OPS. For a guy who's in his age 22 season, you know he's only going to get better, figure out Major League pitching as he enters his statistical prime. You know, I think Dylan Carlson was a little overlooked with the fact that, especially in the outfield, Tyler O'Neill, but Harrison Bader also played really well, won a Gold Glove, and you have this amazing young outfield trio, hopefully for the next several years in St. Louis. And it would not surprise me one bit if Dylan Carlson pushes that OPS above 800, definitely down the road, but even in this next season. Can he get to a 25 homer type season in 2022 if we have a full year? Wouldn't surprise me, but definitely he's going to get to 22, 23 homers, add more power. I'm very excited to see what Dylan Carlson brings to the table moving forward. That was the first person that came to mind. So position player there. Pitching wise, nobody really came to mind for me in terms of a ton of room for improvement. If you just kind of go through the starting staff, I mean, Waino is fantastic. Jack Flaherty just needs to stay healthy. Dakota Hudson, same with him. I mean, Miles Michaelis, same with him. And Steven Matz, we'll see what happens here in year one. And I'm sure there's a lot of bullpen guys. I guess my bullpen answer, as I kind of think about this, is Ryan Helsley. Ryan Helsley, can he finally get to the potential we think he has? And I don't know exactly injury-wise what he was dealing with, because you have the lockout there and you can't really talk about baseball. But I do think Ryan Helsley has great potential. So he's one guy who potentially could go out there and reach that. I don't know if I'll predict that, though. So I'm going to stick with Dylan Carlson, but I hope that Ryan Helsley has a nice bounce-back season if he's good and healthy. Colby Sports, my guy, Colby Sports, who's very prolific here on YouTube, and we always appreciate that. Two questions. What do you think the Cardinals will do after the lockout for free agency? And also, do you think the Cubs will actually get Carlos Correa? I have no idea on Carlos Correa. I was surprised that the Cubs went after Marcus Stroman. It seemed like when they traded everybody at the deadline, especially all those position players, Craig Kimbrell, Ryan Tepera, who do you have left? You have Jason Hayward, you have Wilson Contreras, you have the former Cardinal Patrick Wisdom. I would think they would go on a full-on rebuild for a couple years, but you do have Kyle Hendricks, now Marcus Stroman, Wade Miley. That's a sneaky good 1-2-3 at the top of the rotation. So I have no idea if they're going to go after Carlos Correa. I remember before the lockout that it was predicted, one of those predictors had the Cubs signing Corey Seager. Corey Seager obviously goes to the Texas Rangers. So if you can get a generational type talent in Carlos Correa, and it's going to be a really long deal, and maybe you only rebuild for a year or two, and you have your cornerstone shortstop there who's great offensively and defensively, I do think he's a fantastic player. It's going to take a ton of money, but will the Cubs grab him? I have no clue there. As for the Cardinals, I think the Cardinals are pretty much done in terms of significant moves. And they're going to add at least one bullpen piece. You got to think potentially two. I don't know which names you want to go for. I know Joe Kelly's being talked about a little bit here and there. Luis Garcia goes to the Padres. They were certainly interested in him, but he's not an option anymore. So I think you're going to get a couple relievers, one or two relievers that probably won't make Cardinal fans too excited, but you just need solid, dependable arms. And then I don't think they're going to go big in terms of position players and get that proven type guy for the DH when we all think and know the DH is coming to the National League. But a name, I was talking with the commish, Rick Hummel from the Post-Dispatch a couple months back, and I know other people have reported this as well, but Colin Moran, formerly of the Pirates, I think is a really nice piece in terms of a guy who can play some backup corner infield, but also a left-handed bat. He's played at Busch Stadium. He's played in this division. He's hit well. And that could be a guy coming off the bench and just working in there platoon-wise. That could be a pretty good bat. I think one of the big downsides of the 2021 Cardinals is they had no bench depth whatsoever. There was nobody on the bench that scared you in terms of giving somebody a day off or also a pinch hit opportunity late in the game. And the best teams, the teams that run deep in the playoffs, the teams that win the World Series, they have legit hitters coming off the bench, pinch hit situations, platoon situations. Look what happened with Jock Peterson and the Braves, and they're bringing some of those guys. They're rotating them, but a guy like that can come off the bench and hit a big pinch hit home run and help you advance in the playoffs and potentially win a World Series. Okay, so 3 questions from YouTube. I appreciate that. Colby Sports and Kara Shemke's. Facebook, again, I'm mad at you right now. Not a lot of engagement there. Twitter, great job. Ton of responses on Twitter, so I'll go through them here in order, rapid fire. We won't go too long here, I think. But my guy Polo Asensio, of course, the Spanish language broadcaster for the Cardinals, on Twitter at La Vaz Vacunado. I need to look that up to know what it means in Spanish. How do you feel about the leadoff hitter the second time around the lineup? Is it still considered a leadoff even if he is hitting second in the inning? I will hang up and listen on the radio. Gracias, Chuck. Should we call the leadoff hitter the second time around the lineup still the leadoff hitter? He's obviously having some fun here. I think he's always the leadoff hitter. Even if he's batting 4th, 7th down the road, that's your guy. That's your table setter. That's your leadoff guy. But yeah, many times down the road during the game, he's not hitting leadoff. Polo having some fun there. There are some serious ones, or at least some baseball questions. How about Derek Gould, the fine beat writer with the Post-Dispatch, says, will you miss the pitcher batting 8th? I don't know if he's trying to stir it up. I think he's probably, I'm guessing he's probably old school National League baseball style. And I understand Cardinals fans watching this right now, if you grew up with Whitey Ball, if you grew up with National League baseball, you like the pitcher batting. I do not. All right. I never have. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. So my teams I watched were Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Indians. Those were the games we got on TV. So I grew up watching American League baseball. I'm 39 years old. So I always had the DH in my life. I would have always said this, but I will say this even more now, as baseball looks to grab the younger viewer. They're trying to make the game more interesting. They're trying to have more action in the game. All right. You're trying to generate more offense. It is so hard to hit these days. A pitcher goes in and throws 100 pitches in 5 innings. He goes through the lineup about 2 times. Then you're bringing in 3 to 5 relievers throwing basically 95 to 100 miles an hour to directly match up with what you as a hitter don't do well and try to neutralize you. It's hard for position players to hit, let alone pitchers. If you're a Shohei Ohtani and you can go out there and rake, I love those guys. Those guys are unicorns. Michael Lorenzen, if you can hit, bring me all those guys. But most of the time, those pitchers don't even look like they belong in the batter's box. And so I am happy that the DH, hopefully when it is negotiated in this new CBA, is coming across baseball. I think it's good for the game. I think it's good for action. I think it's good for offense. And also it gives that aging player 15 more teams. If it's somebody who is older, they can still rake, but they can't run. They got a bum leg or whatnot. Some of those guys can hang around for a couple, 2, 3, 4 extra years and be a DH. And then also you can use it to rotate and platoon and give guys a day off, getting them off their feet. Look at the Cardinals. You could have down the road a Nolan Gorman working in on the DH, but you have some stud corner infielders who are not young. Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, even though they're great defensively, to keep those guys fresh, if you can just kind of selectively 5, 7, 8, 10 times per year, and maybe you don't want to do that with your Gold Glove guys, but whatever, maybe it's 5 times, to give those guys a night where they're off their feet and they can just rest and keep them a little fresher for what hopefully in 2022 for the Cardinals is a long playoff run, because it's 162 games. And this Cardinals team, I think they can be special in 2022. There's no reason to grind those guys down when you're hoping to play another 20 games in the playoffs and go for a deep run. I am not a fan of the pitcher batting. I never have been. 8th, 9th, whatever it is, bring on the DH, bring on the arguments. If you want to argue with me about that, I get it. And if you grew up in St. Louis, I understand why you disagree. We are allowed to disagree, okay? We're allowed to disagree. Throw it in the comments, and we'll keep it going after this video is posted. All right, let's see. How hot will these takes be from James Phillips? Will you put a finger in the chest of Bowtie and remind him who he works for, the best fans in baseball? Am I supposed to call out John Mozeliak? I like the Steven Matz move. I still think the Cardinals could and should add a bat. So when I'm saying what the Cardinals, what I think they're going to do, that's not necessarily what I want them to do. I do think that this was the greatest free agent shortstop market that I can ever remember. And when you have a clear spot at shortstop where you can upgrade, where the Cardinals have Paul DeJong, Edmundo Sosa, fine players, they're okay. But some of these guys that were out there, Carlos Correa and Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, the list goes on and on. I know it's big money contracts, but the Cardinals could upgrade at shortstop. And you had amazing names out there, still a couple out there, Carlos Correa, obviously, but you just kind of knew the Cardinals were not going in that direction. It's fun to talk about, but they were never going to pull the trigger on one of those big time guys there. Okay. This is from Jay Sadid on Twitter. Hey, Charlie, what youngin surprises us or breaks out this year? So again, I didn't look at these, so I'm going off the top of my head. What youngin? So if you throw out the guys that haven't come up yet, you got Nolan Gorman potentially, but I think Nolan Gorman will make his MLB debut at some point in 2022. Matthew Liberatore, Juan Yepez is somebody who could come up and be a 4th, 5th outfielder type, potentially working that DH spot. So of those guys that I just mentioned, and I'm buying time here, I think Liberatore, I don't know if that's a surprise, but in terms of breaking out, I don't know when Nolan Gorman is going to come up, and I don't think you want to bring him up until he's going to play every day. And Tommy Edman just won a Gold Glove at second base. So unless Nolan Gorman is really DHing a lot, I'm not sure he'll be up very soon. It could be based on an injury. And Juan Yepez, I think he'll be fine. I can see him in a bench role. But I can see Matthew Liberatore really contributing in 2022. And maybe that's also not at the beginning of the year, but we know there's going to be injuries. There's injury question marks in the starting rotation right now. And so I think his ability to either come up and fill in a hole in the starting rotation, but also we know how the Cardinals like to bring their young starting pitchers up. If there's a spot, use them in the pen. Could he be a long man? I just think he's going to contribute. I think he's going to legitimately contribute in 2022. He had a very solid season last year at Memphis. It wasn't spectacular, but it was very solid. And I think Matthew Liberatore is going to be somebody who helps the St. Louis Cardinals in 2022. I know that's not a really surprising answer, but it's my answer. Don Humphrey on Twitter says, hey, Charlie, something really insightful. The Cardinals need more pitching, and a couple of emojis. Lots of question marks for next year. And what's your take on Matt Liberatore maybe making it to the big show next year? So clearly I didn't look ahead because I just talked about Matthew Liberatore in my previous tweet. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be good. Okay. Justin Adams, Jay Adams on Twitter says, is Manfred single-handedly ruining the game and alienating baseball's historically devout and attentive fans in a weirdly short-sighted, yet never-ending and seemingly failing attempt to appease potential fans that exist in his mind alone? And why is the answer yes? Very funny, Justin. I like that. I'll tell you what, it's not single-handed, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that Rob Manfred has done well. And I usually give commissioners the benefit of the doubt. I'm not one of these people. I think it's fun for fans. They like to boo every commissioner. They like to boo all these guys. Oh, you're the commissioner. You represent the league. You represent big business and the owners, and they want to boo them. And I think that always happens. Some of these guys do a good job. I can't think of anything that Rob Manfred has done well. His really dumb comments about the piece of metal, the scrap of metal with the World Series trophy, going back to the whole scandal with the Houston Astros. And I don't blame him for that scandal. I think baseball could have handled that better. I don't think the Astros were really punished that much. I mean, in terms of the players, some of their executives, obviously Jeff Luhnow and AJ Hinch were, and Alex Cora, but both those managers are back in baseball. The thing that happened recently, though, with Ken Rosenthal, I've been chuckling at this because, first of all, it's so short-sighted, it's so small, it's so thin-skinned for Rob Manfred, where Ken Rosenthal, by the way, is about the most respected reporter in sports, not just baseball. And I've met him several times, but he's the most fair guy I've ever read or heard or watched on TV. He isn't this hot take artist that's going out there and ripping on folks. And he had what I would call light criticism of Rob Manfred while baseball was trying to get back during COVID. And for Rob Manfred to have such thin skin that he would basically order the code red for Ken Rosenthal not to be able to work anymore at MLB Network, man, that, I want to swear on here, but that's a B move. You know what I'm saying? I will swear that's a bitch move, straight up. And not only that, it backfired, because imagine you're wanting to get rid of a critical voice to, in theory, make you look better because you don't want this person criticizing you. How dumb, silly, and short-sighted. Did you not think that the entire media army on social media was not going to come out and have Ken Rosenthal's back? Again, everybody loves Ken Rosenthal because he's such a pro. He's so good at his job. He's not somebody that just rips on people like Skip Bayless. That's the guy who had light criticism, which, by the way, is his job. And you make sure that guy doesn't come back to your propaganda arm, let's be real, which is MLB Network. Every media member, and I know the media likes to poke fun here and there, and they got each other's back, and it's fans too. Every single media member, when that story came out, came to Ken Rosenthal's defense and just tweeted, wrote articles, had takes on radio, on TV, crushing Rob Manfred. So short-sighted to think you're going to get rid of this guy and it's not going to come back on you. It's made him look infinitely worse. That was just really, really stupid. So, Jay Adams, I'm glad you brought that up. I agree with you. I am not a fan whatsoever of Rob Manfred. How about also the fact that coming off the holidays, I didn't expect baseball to do anything until after the holidays anyway. Okay, you got Christmas and New Year's, and then it's the Monday after the holidays where it's kind of back to business as normal, right? Back to everybody working and whatnot. And you see the first article comes out and it says that baseball, the owners and the players have no negotiations ready to go. They're not planning on talking here soon. You just had a month. You had the entire month of December. You had the holidays. This is the time to now get back in the room, get back at the table, and fix this. I just thought that was really stupid. Rob Manfred, terrible leader. I wouldn't want him leading my league if I'm the owners. And I know he works for the owners, but man, I think he is not the guy that I would want speaking on my behalf. Cole Bartemus on Twitter, do you see the MLB implementing a salary floor in the near future? Disgruntled Pirates fan. There are Pirates fans out there. I wish that would happen. I think that would be great for baseball if that happened. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I do wish all these teams would not be able to full on tank. So you have to do something to deal with the competitive balance and tanking issue. One way to do that would be implementing a salary floor, as Cole said. And I don't think that's a bad idea. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think the other way to do that is to incentivize competition, incentivize competing. You don't give the worst teams necessarily the first pick. You have to go to a lottery system. You should reward teams. You should actually reward the teams that fall just short of the playoffs in terms of they shouldn't have the worst draft picks compared to the teams that were absolutely tanking and winning 50, 55, 60 games, not even trying to win. That is not good for baseball. That's not good for the sport. You see how baseball had those competitive balance picks. They had those picks they gave to teams in smaller markets. They can do something with sandwich type picks, not necessarily in the first round, but whatever it is, they can give draft picks, draft capital down the road to teams that are trying to win that fall just short. It shouldn't be the 50-win Pirates. And I mean, you can go back to, the Orioles, whoever it is, a lot of these teams, the Marlins back in the day, although the Marlins are pretty competitive now. I think they will be, but you need to do something about these teams tanking, because a lot of teams tank and only a few of them win a World Series, like the Cubs, like the Astros. A lot of them tank and then they come back and they're a little bit better and then they're bad again. And that is not good for the sport, not good for their fan bases, not good for baseball. Okay, the Cubs fan of STL on Twitter asks, MLB started going down the hill when they became too much regionally oriented. The game stopped growing because of it. I think the beauty of baseball is actually the regional aspect of it, in terms of you're watching all your games on your local cable network. I do think baseball has to clean up the TV packages in terms of their regional sports networks need to be readily available and easy to get, especially on your streaming platforms, which everybody's going to these days. That's annoyed me. I'll tell you straight up. I switched from DirecTV because of customer service to YouTube TV. And then I've liked YouTube TV, except for a year in, they drop the Cardinals and the Blues games, which is really the only thing I want to watch on cable TV. I know other people have complained about that with Hulu, with YouTube. There's the blackout rules as well. I think, yeah, if baseball was more national, like the NFL, I think you get more of the casual fans. I just don't know with baseball. We didn't watch these kids in college like you do with football and basketball. You don't watch them when they're playing football for Ohio State or basketball at Duke. Really, when these kids are drafted, you don't know any of them. Maybe every once in a while, Bryce Harper. You don't know these guys coming out of college. You don't know the prep guys. I think it's harder to grow that fan base. I think the regional aspect is the beauty of baseball. But maybe your question is, they need to have a better national spotlight. You have Sunday Night Baseball. I like what they're doing with the YouTube games and the Facebook games. I do think that grows the younger audience, but you need to have more of a national appeal, like the NFL. Everybody knows who these quarterbacks are. The superstars in the NBA, they're very marketable. People know who they are. Baseball, the average fan, who do you know? Maybe, and I'm talking more like the casual sports fan. You've heard of Shohei Ohtani? Do you know who Mike Trout is? I'm not so sure. Bryce Harper, you got some flair there. Some guys that retired recently, like a Derek Jeter and all that. But I don't think there's a lot of national names in terms of a Q rating that your casual sports fan knows. Whereas specifically, in my opinion, football and basketball, there's many more guys like that. Eric Martin, also on Twitter, says, I see Anthony Rizzo and Kyle Schwarber as really good fits to get a big lefty bat in the middle of the lineup, assuming DH is inevitable, which I think it is. Is it possible one of our arch enemies donned the birds on the bat? Rizzo in particular would be an awesome personality to pair with Goldinado. I like that. It's kind of like like a Benifer situation there. That's just not going to happen. Rizzo, there's no way Rizzo's coming here. No chance. You got a first baseman. I don't think Rizzo wants to be a full-time DH. That's just not happening, although it would be cool. Kyle Schwarber, I think, is a perfect fit. It's another one of those things where if you ask me who the Cardinals need, who could really help, it's somebody like a Kyle Schwarber. It is a left-handed bat that can play outfield, and that when they get the DH, it's coming, can be in that DH mix. And then in the outfield, you could do a platoon situation. Now, you want to play O'Neill, Bader, Carlson most games, which is why this isn't even going to happen. But I'm entertaining your question. It would be nice, though, to have two lefties in terms of you could have the switch hitting Dylan Carlson and a left-handed hitting outfielder out there, and you could work around some platoon, some off days. And then when you're facing a lefty, you got Tyler O'Neill, you got the right-handed hitting Harrison Bader, and then you have the switch guy who, of course, can hit right in Dylan Carlson, and you can create some really nice matchups there. I love the idea of Kyle Schwarber. He's going to get paid. I just don't think he's coming here. I don't think there's any chance. They're not going big there. So it's just not happening, although I would love if it did. Cardinals stats on Twitter says Nolan Arenado's home slash line, 228, 287, 435, 96 weighted runs created. Paled in comparison to his away slash line, 279, 336, 549 for a 130 WRC plus. His hard hit rate was also 6.5% higher on the road, 36.8% versus 30.3% at Busch. Is this just an adjustment year to Busch or a sign of things to come? First of all, great stats, great numbers. We know that Busch Stadium was not, especially this past year. I mean, it's always been a fair park, a pitcher's park, but a lot of the stats that we saw, a lot of the articles written down the stretch there, you saw how much of a pitcher's park it became. Those are pretty drastic home road splits for Nolan Arenado. Doesn't surprise me. It's just kind of funny because when he comes from Colorado, there was that narrative about, oh, is he going to be able to hit when he comes from Coors Field to Busch Stadium? I think most people thought, yes, of course he's going to be fine. You're not going to put up the same ridiculous gaudy home run totals and doubles. And because of more doubles and homers, you're going to have a much higher OPS and slug, and your counting stats with home runs and RBI. He was never going to get to those with the Cardinals. And by the way, he's not old, but he's also not young. So Nolan Arenado, I believe around 31, I'll look that up, but he's also past that real statistical prime. If you're talking 25, 26 to 30-ish, he's still going to be really, really good. But when you're on the other side of 30, that's also part of his numbers overall coming down. But this question from Cardinal Stats, more about home versus road. That is, I mean, those are pretty drastic splits there. So we'll see if he can turn that around and what the Cardinals can potentially do to try to generate more offense in their home park, because that was a huge issue. And then you look down the road too about potentially attracting free agent offensive players if you don't want to play at a park where it's really tough to hit and hit for power. Chris on Twitter, Chris Nickler, C Nickler 23 says, would ending the local blackouts on MLB.TV help grow the game? It seems archaic to not allow people in local markets to buy the service yet not be able to watch their team. I've never really experienced the blackout rules living in St. Louis, but I know a lot of people complain about it on social media. The whole thing with the Field of Dreams game, I know they had the billboards up there because all these Iowa baseball fans, they don't have a team in their state. So they might be Cubs fans, a lot of Cubs fans, a lot of Cardinals fans, could be some White Sox fans, whatever it is, Kansas City Royals. I know there's a bunch of issues with those folks trying to watch baseball games. Dave Matter, who does a great job covering Mizzou with the Post-Dispatch, I know he's tweeted multiple times over recent years about him living in the middle of the state in Columbia and it being hard to find the Cardinals game or the Royals game. And so what, MLB, do you expect folks to drive 2 hours? I mean, because that blackout rule, which we know more from the NFL, I understand that you want people to go to the games. An NFL game, there's 8 home games, or now 8 or 9 with the 17 game schedule. But baseball, you play 162 games. You got folks who have to travel a long way. if you're spread out in your state and you're not within a half an hour or so of your local MLB team, yeah, I think that's also hurting baseball. You need to make baseball really easy to get on TV, on your phone, on your streaming services. I know you want to make as much money as possible. And in the end, look, you're going to go with your best deal, with your best TV package and all that. But also, you don't want to lose fans because it's either too expensive or too hard to find the games, or it's just a headache. Again, it's a headache to have to feel like you need to change your cable service provider multiple times just to watch your team. After a while, you just get tired of it. And even me, big time sports fan, I've covered sports. I'm sick of it. I don't want to have to change my cable provider again after I just did it a year ago. And it looks like I'll have to do that. And that's really annoying. So if you're not a big time fan, I can see a lot of people like that saying, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I'm just going to get rid of it. And I'll look on my phone. I'll see the highlights. I'll listen on the radio. So baseball, they do need to watch that. Okay. BP says, do you think the cat on Bally is worth his salary as the Cardinals sideline reporter? Of course. My radio cohort, Jim Hayes, of course he's worth his massive salary as the Cardinals sideline reporter. It'll be good to see the cat and the crew from Valley Sports Midwest getting back on the road. Hopefully, if COVID dies down with Omicron, however we're saying it, and hopefully those crews can get back on the road, because you saw it's pretty difficult to call a baseball game from a studio not in the ballpark, or they're playing on the road, you're at the ballpark, you're trying to judge the depth of a fly ball, and you're watching on the monitor and you don't know, oh, is it a home run? Is it a fly out? Oh, you try to get excited. Oh, it's 27, 30 feet from the fence. Oh, it could be. It goes 480 feet. Those broadcasters, you just don't have any perspective when you're watching on the monitors there compared to being in the ballpark. The game, the broadcasts are so much better when those broadcasters are at the ballpark. So we got to get that back, hopefully. Stephen Miller, couple things to knock around. One, this past season, Tyler O'Neill began hitting to all fields and pulling the ball less. Do you see a progression in bright future? And number two, I was surprised the Cards bailed on Nick Plummer. I would have liked to see another spring and summer. Thanks. So Nick Plummer goes to the Mets. And, you have to make tough choices there. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if Nick Plummer, high draft pick, still potentially a very talented guy, figures it out. Sometimes it happens with different organizations. Tyler O'Neill. So let's look up his numbers here. Tyler O'Neill, as good of a season as you think he had, when you look it up, it was even better than you thought. So first of all, to answer your question, do I see a bright future? Absolutely, 100%. Now, is he going to have a better season? I don't know about that, because it'll be really difficult for Tyler O'Neill to have a better season than 2021. So he was 8th in the MVP, Gold Glove for the second straight year, played 138 games, so a little banged up there early, but 34 homers, 80 RBI, a 286 batting average. For a guy that hits for that much power, and also he does strike out a lot, 168 strikeouts, to still be batting 286 is dang impressive. 352 on base, 560 slug for a 912 OPS and a OPS plus of 150. So we're talking 50% better than league average offensively. And then also he wins a Gold Glove award. So that's where, look, Tyler O'Neill could have a great season and not put up those same numbers. You look at that. If you're 150 OPS plus, so if he falls off 10%, 15%, 20%, he's still having a really good season. So I think it'll be tough for him to replicate 2021. I think he's going to be really, really good. You have, I don't want to call him MV3 type situation there, but with Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and Tyler O'Neill, 3 30-homer guys in the middle of that lineup, I think you're going to see Dylan Carlson, as we mentioned earlier, really progress there. Yeah, I think Tyler O'Neill, he figured it out. He stayed pretty healthy. He's also just such a good all-around baseball player. I mean, you see him running the bases. He's super fast, one of the fastest players, sprint speed in Major League Baseball. He plays a really good defensive left field out there, and he has just monstrous power. He has huge power, which it wouldn't surprise me if his power numbers go up. Overall, will his OPS plus be 150 moving forward every season? Probably not, but would it surprise you if I told you Tyler O'Neill's going to hit 40 homers in a season? Would that surprise you? Well, look, he hit 34 and he played in 138 games. All he has to do is stay healthy there. If he plays 155 games right there, you're pushing 40 home runs just if he stays healthy. So Tyler O'Neill was just a huge bright spot. Obviously, I don't think I'm breaking any news right there. So yeah, I expect more big things from Tyler O'Neill, but you also have to prove it a couple years. There have been a lot of players that do it for 1 year. You got to put a couple seasons, stack them back to back to back before you're regarded as one of the true elite players in baseball. Let's see. DB Cooper says, what year do you think Mike Maroth puts on the red jacket and finally makes it into the Cardinals Hall of Fame? Nice joke there. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. At this point, I'm with you there. I just don't really care anymore. Back in the day, I felt more strongly about the steroids era players. Barry Bonds, he was a Hall of Famer before. Also, just get off the ballot so we stop talking about you. Just put them in. If you want to put an asterisk or mention on their plaque, have a separate wing, tell the story of baseball. These guys, they broke the rules or they did what they weren't supposed to do. They broke a bunch of records. Mention that, but put them in. Guys like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, they were going to be in anyway. I'm not saying that I am okay with what they did, but it's been 20, 25 years. Let's move on. Put them in the Hall of Fame so we can stop talking about them. Maybe we can talk more about some of these players that really deserve it and played clean. Scott Rowland, guys like that. Okay. Alex Gandy asks, Tommy Edman reminds me a lot of David Eckstein, and I love his play. Can he be the long-term solution at leadoff and second base? Or will the hitting vacuum continue to push out players like him in search for more power and OBP? Hashtag STL Cards. I love Tommy Edman's game. And look, are you going to take a guy who won the Gold Glove and take him away from second base? Now, I do think his defensive versatility is very, very valuable. He could even play a little corner outfield if you needed him to. I don't think he's a guy you want to play shortstop. Now, could he go out there if somebody was hurt for a couple games? Sure. But to me also, if Tommy Edman is your Ben Zobrist type, if he's your super utility guy, but primarily playing second base at a Gold Glove caliber, if he ever needed to go over there to third base and give Nolan Arenado a day, or if there was an injury here or there, you feel really good about Tommy Edman having to play a right field if something happened in the outfield, if there were injuries. Tommy Edman is a really solid player. I think you want him on your team. He doesn't have to be a superstar, doesn't have to be even one of your 4 or 5 best offensive players. But if Tommy Edman playing Gold Glove second base is your second baseman, do a little platoon situation, maybe with a Nolan Gorman, do a little DH, kind of depending on who you're using there, but a really, really good all-around defensive player, a really just solid, as Tony La Russa would say, a winning player. You want Tommy Edman on your ball club. Alex Gandy also asks, comments related to Nolan Arenado's 2021 season. Big deal or don't worry? Much more stats here. So 255 batting average, lowest of career. 0.9 D-WAR, lowest of career. 6.7% barrel percentage, lowest of career. 37.1 hard hit percentage, lowest of career. 807 OPS, lowest since 2013. 34 homers, fewest since 2014. 113 WRC plus, fewest since 2014. We kind of talked about this earlier with Nolan Arenado. So again, the counting stats, it shouldn't surprise us one bit that the homer numbers, the RBI, the gaudy, whether it's doubles, whether it's OPS, RBI, those all go down. So 34 homers, 105 RBIs. I mean, 105 RBIs. I know that's a stat that has a lot to do with your team. But yeah, I mean, 34 home runs is about what I expected. This is his age 30 season. He's now in 2022 on the wrong end of 30. It'll be his age 31 season. We shouldn't expect the 42, 130 RBI, 41, 133 RBI. I mean, he had 3 seasons of 130 RBIs with the Rockies in Coors Field. He had 3 seasons of 40 homers. He's led the league in homers 3 times with the Rockies, led the league in doubles. The fact that he had 34 doubles and 34 homers is about what I expected in terms of those numbers. You knew they were going to come down. You knew he was still going to be a really good offensive player, but he's not hitting 45 home runs as a 30-year-old at Busch Stadium. That just doesn't happen usually. And I do think he could be more consistent offensively. You're talking about a guy who has a 288 career average. He had 255 last year. That does, I don't know if worry me is the right word. His on base was way down. His slug was down decent amount overall. His OPS plus was 121, which is his career average there. I don't think that's a huge surprise though. As a 31-year-old, a guy who plays really hard, just his numbers coming down, especially the counting stats, don't surprise me one bit. Yeah, I think it's fair to say you got to have him, hitting more to hopefully 270, 275. I know batting average doesn't matter that much, but it speaks more to you just seeing the ball, putting the ball in play. You got to get the on-base percentage up. I do think when you get a Nolan Arenado, you're expecting a player who is going to push an OPS pushing 900, right? I mean, 850, 875, pushing 900. He was 807. So it's fair to say, even though he's an all-star Gold Glover and he had the 30 and 100 RBIs, that overall offensively, there's more there. This is also a player who's going to be in his age 31 season. So I think he's still going to be really, really good probably for the next 2, 3, 4 years potentially. But yeah, you're going to see those numbers starting to trend down as he gets older, as all these guys do. Why does Paul DeJong get a pass by the front office where they don't look to upgrade the position? I don't think he gets a pass. I think they have an investment in him. And I think they look at him that if he can be close to league average offensively, he plays a really solid shortstop, that he can be a contributing player. He doesn't have to be a star. You can throw him, I don't want to say he's in the same Tommy Edman category, but Paul DeJong, if he can be your sixth best hitter on a team, your seventh best hitter, I think you're okay with that. Now, Paul DeJong made an all-star game a couple years back. I was at that game in Cleveland. Now, that was a year where everybody needs one all-star, and Paul DeJong was that for the Cardinals. He had 30 homers that year in 2019. So look at his OPS plus. After his first year, which was 121, we're talking 102, 99, 87, and 86 this past year. So to me, you got to bump that up close to league average. If Paul DeJong is a league average offensive shortstop, we know he can hit 20 home runs. He can get to 30 if he's out there. He's gonna strike out. Had 149 strikeouts in that all-star year. Had 103 in 113 games last year. But for the way he plays defense and the power he can give you, he doesn't have to be great offensively. He just needs to be serviceable and be league average. And if you're not going to go after the big dogs and the Carlos Correas and the Corey Seagers of the world, I think you're okay. You're at least okay going into the season with Paul DeJong and Edmundo Sosa as your options at shortstop. I'm not worried about those positions. Okay, I think they'll be fine. They might not be above average. They certainly probably won't be elite across Major League Baseball, but I think the Cardinals will be fine at shortstop. My point was you could have really upgraded, but we just knew that wasn't going to happen because it was going to take a ton of money to get that done. Let's see. The final tweet. Patriot Subvet says, things money can't buy. Learning how to execute a bunt, hitting behind a runner to get them in scoring position, location over constant heat. How about that? First of all, I'm an anti-buntite. I don't like bunting at all. I like when a speedy guy every once in a while tries to bunt for a hit. I don't like the sacrifice bunt. That's why also, if we get the pitchers out of hitting, if we bring the DH, we'll see less boring sacrifice bunts. By the way, the worst thing I hate the most is the sacrifice bunt with a guy on second base. He's already in scoring position. You don't need to sacrifice him to third base. I hate that. Bunting is boring. I'm sorry. I understand why it's there back in the day. Slap it around, bunt a little bit. If you're Brett Butler back in the day, dropping a little drag bunt, I can see a little bit of excitement there every once in a while. But overall, the sacrifice bunt is boring. It hurts baseball. Nobody wants to see it. I'm sorry. I know I don't like the old school National League strategy of bunting and the pitcher hitting and all that. It's just not my game. And I think, look, every other sport bends its rules for offense. getting rid of the clutching in hockey, getting rid of illegal defenses, and opening up freedom of movement in basketball. Football's probably taken it too far, where everything's a flag. If you touch the quarterback, if you kind of flick the quarterback, it's a 15-yard penalty. But still, why do they do that? Because the drop off, when the quarterback, the big time quarterback, gets hurt and can't play, and the guy that comes in after that is unwatchable. So guess what? That hurts your bottom line. You got to keep those quarterbacks healthy because they're the ones driving your sport and keeping it exciting. I know I went off on a tangent there, but basically bunting is boring. It's boring. Get it out. And hitting behind a runner to get them in scoring position, I'm fine for that. That's old school. Hey, productive outs. I'm okay with that. But also, don't you want to try to replace that guy? Got a guy on second base, okay? Hit behind the runner. Like situationally. If it's the ninth inning of a huge game, I understand that. Situationally, productive out, score that winning run, as Mike Schilt would say, shake hands and go home. But other than that, guy on second base, you're trying to trade places, aren't you? All right, tell you what, that was fun. Twitter, great job. YouTube, pretty good job for comments. Facebook, terrible job. Please be better, Facebook. This was fun. I'll do it once a week or so if you guys are still throwing comments out there. And hopefully we don't have to do it too long without any baseball activity, because that means this stupid lockout is going longer and longer and longer. And this video was pretty long too. I don't know how long. I forgot to look when it started, but I know it feels like it's been a long video. Hopefully it was quasi interesting. If not, I apologize. But thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll have tons of Cardinals, baseball, MLB content here on YouTube all season long. Charlie Marlow and 590 The Fan, KFNS Radio here on YouTube. Thank you, and we'll see you later.